What are the three ancient weapons for? What is Uranus? Is it connected to the power IMU used to wipe out Lulusia? This devil is in Elbaf right now, revealing his true identity and facing off against Loki. These two share a special bond, and today you're finally going to find out exactly why. For years, this story has focused on the adventures of Luffy and the Straw Hats, but beneath the surface, Oda has been quietly dropping hints about the ancient weapons. Many arcs have revolved around them: Arabasta, Skypiea, Water 7, Enies Lobby, Fishman Island, Wano, Egghead, and trust me, Elbaf is following the same path. This can only mean one thing: they are the ultimate key to the Endgame, the final war, a war where the nation of Elbaf will play a crucial role. Over 2 years ago, a huge theory dropped on the Last Zoan channel that hit over 1 million views. A lot of what was said came true, but as we've learned more, some of those puzzle pieces need a serious update. So let's break it down. Here is the information we have so far. Let's start with Pluton. Back in Arabasta, we learned about a top-secret poneglyph that revealed Pluton's true location, Wano. Even Crocodile was hunting for it, chasing the rumor that this weapon could wipe an entire island off the map. Then, Water 7 added a huge twist with the blueprints. Protected by shipwrights for generations, these blueprints were meant to build a massive warship. But guess what? The real Pluton was already out there. Those blueprints were just a backup plan to build a second ship, just in case the original fell into enemy hands. But as we all know, Frankie literally burned that backup plan to ashes. The original Pluton is sealed beneath Wano, and the only way to release it is by fulfilling the Kosuke will, opening the borders of Wano. Literally. This is where Momonosuke comes in. He inherited the unique power to command Sunisha. This colossal beast is just waiting for Momo to give the green light and smash Wano's walls. Once that happens, Pluton will be finally free. So if we look closely, Pluton relies on 3 key elements: a giant ship, a giant beast, and a person born with a special power. Now, let's talk about Poseidon. Back in Skypiea, a poneglyph pointing us straight to Fishman Island. And notice a trend here? Is another isolated nation, completely cut off from the world, exactly like Wano. But the thing about Poseidon is, it's not even an object. The mermaid princess herself, Shirahoshi, is the ancient weapon. She inherited a rare ability from an ancient princess, the power to command the sea kings, the giant beasts of the ocean. And guess what else is down there? A giant ship called the Noah. The prophecy says that when Fishman Island is destroyed, Shirahoshi will order the sea kings to pull the Noah to the surface, carrying her people to safety. See the pattern here? Is it exactly the same as Pluton? A future leader inherits a special power, Momo and Shirahoshi. They use that power to command giant beasts, Sunisha and the Sea Kings. And because of this, a massive ship that's been waiting for centuries is finally set in motion, the warship in Wano and the Noah in Fishman Island. Thanks to this established pattern, we can finally crack the code of Uranus. We just need to find 3 specific puzzle pieces. 1. A royal heir from an isolated nation, born with a special power. 2. A giant beast they can command. And 3. A colossal ship. Now you might be asking, which of those 3 is the actual weapon? The truth is, it doesn't really matter. Think about it. With Pluton, the title of weapon goes to the ship. With Poseidon, the weapon is the princess herself. So following that exact logic, the actual weapon for Uranus should be the giant beast, making the prince and the ship its necessary complements. But hold on, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. What about the Mother Flame? Let's get this straight. The Mother Flame is actually just an energy source developed by Vegapunk. The real mystery is the flying machine that used the Mother Flame to rain lasers down on Lulusia. Is that match in Uranus? It's very possible, and we'll get to that in a bit. But here's a massive detail everyone overlooks. The revolutionaries never explicitly called it Uranus. What if Oda is setting up a wild twist? A 4th ancient weapon? One that belongs entirely to the world government. Think about it. This weapon doesn't care about our person vs ship rule. It's already been fired, and it didn't need a royal heir or a giant beast. All it needed was pure energy, the Mother Flame. If that's the case, the real Uranus is still out there hiding, which means we have to go back to our person vs ship pattern to find it. Finding the person is the easy part. a prince from an isolated nation who ends up allying with Luffy. And look at the manga right now. Elbaf is the perfect isolated hiding spot, and we are literally watching Luffy and Loki form an alliance, exactly like he did with Shirahoshi and Momo. But there's a deeper layer to this. Just as Shirahoshi represents the mermaid princess lineage, and Momo carries the Kozuki and Amatsuki bloodline, Loki comes from the ancient lineage of the ancient giants. This isn't just a title, it's an inherited legacy. We already know there were dark prophecies about his birth and supposed curse tied to his strange, unique eyes. But what if the giants got it wrong? What if that so-called curse is actually the gift needed to control Uranus? This brings us to the second part of the pattern. What kind of beasts could Loki control? The answer lies in the names of the gods themselves. Every ancient weapon is tied to a specific element: the sea, the land, and the sky. Poseidon is the god of the sea, so its beasts are the Sea Kings. Pluton is the god of the underworld, and while the ship is buried underground, its partner Sunisha is the ultimate land beast. Following this logic, Uranus, the god of sky, has to be an aerial beast. Vegapunk recently confirmed that these weapons are tied to the destruction of the world. And honestly, it's becoming pretty obvious that Oda is using the Bible as his primary source. From the Ark Noah to the Great Flood, the references are everywhere. But Oda is digging even deeper into ancient Hebrew and Sumerian traditions. In the Old Testament, there are three legendary creatures known as the primal beasts: Leviathan, Behemoth, and Sis. The Leviathan is the sea monster, which perfectly mirrors the Sea Kings. The Behemoth is the beast of the land. Ancient texts describe it as a colossal elephant with bones as solid as bronze. With that massive scale, there is no doubt, Sunisha is the behemoth. That leaves us with only one option for Uranus, the Sis, the lord of the skies. This primordial beast is described in ancient mythology as a creature so huge that its wings blocked out the sun, turning day into night over entire cities. While Western texts often depict it as a bird, in many Eastern traditions, this celestial ruler takes the form of a dragon. This isn't a new concept in pop culture. Think about the primal trio in Pokémon: Kyogre in the sea, Groudon on land, and Rayquaza the dragon in the sky. Oda is clearly leaning into this exact same myth. In fact, you can see this whole thing play out on the Elbaf mural. It looks like a roadmap for the end of the world, the Ragnarok. If you look closely, Sunisha is clearly the behemoth, and those sea serpents represent the Leviathan. But right at the top, perched above the Adam tree, is a huge flying dragon. That's the Sis. And that dragon? It's Loki in his Nidhogg form. For 900 years, the guardian Rathatos protected the Nidhogg fruit, Elbaf's greatest treasure, waiting for the right one with the right spirit to show up. Loki is that prince. He's the first one in 9 centuries deemed worthy of this power. When he transforms, Oda makes a huge point of showing us just how giant he is. It's a direct callback to the legend of the seas blocking out the sun. It all fits. Loki is the person, and his Nidhogg fruit is the beast of Uranus. Finally, we need to talk about the ship. I have a theory that connects everything. I believe the original ship of Uranus is currently in Imu's possession. This means it was stolen during the Void Century, and there are 2 huge clues that back this up. First, remember back in Water 7, it was mentioned that Elbaf was once nearly destroyed by a rain of bullets, with only the Adam tree surviving. That sounds exactly like the weapon that wiped out Lulusia. It's very likely that during the Void Century, the enemy stole Uranus and used it right there against Elbaf. This explains why IMU has the ship now, but since they don't have Loki's electric dragon power to fuel it, they have to use the Mother Flame as a battery to make it fly. The second piece of evidence is Caribou. Oda has given this character a very specific role in the story. He discovered the truth about both Poseidon and Pluton, and both times, he kept saying he had to tell that person everything. Initially, I thought Caribou would end up back on the Thousand Sunny after Egghead to find out the truth about Uranus too, and then he got to report it. But in Egghead, we found out that person is actually Blackbird. And here's the thing, Caribou has already left with Blackbird's crew to leak the information about the first 2 weapons. Now, if the theory is true and Blackbird is the final villain, meaning he eventually kills IMU and becomes the new king of the world, it only makes sense for him to get his hands on all the 3 ancient weapons. That's everyone's biggest fear, right? But wait, why didn't Caribou wait to find out about Uranus in Elbaf? The only logical answer is that Uranus is already with IMU. If the current king of the world already has it, then once Blackbird takes the throne, the weapon comes with the crown. That's why Caribou only needed a location for the first two. The third one is already at the top. Basically, I'm saying the weapon that destroyed Lulusia is actually the flying ship of Uranus, a weapon that belonged to Elbaf. And I'll take it a step farther. We know now that during the Void Century there was a legendary squad of giant shipwrights who were basically the first Galila. These giants were likely the ones who built the three massive ships associated to the ancient weapons. This explains why the Galila in Water 7 kept the blueprints for Pluton for so long. The company simply continued the work of their ancestors through a line of apprentices. Oda made a huge point about an ancient weapon falling into the wrong hands, which is why the blueprints were so important. They were meant to build a second ship to fight back. That can't happen with Pluton anymore since Frankie burned those plans. And even though some think the Thousand Sun is a mini Pluton, it's just inspired by certain features on a much smaller scale, not the real thing. But that huge plot point about building a second weapon has to come back. If IMU has the original Uranus, the blueprints might still be out there to build a rival ship. We're looking at two possibilities. Either Loki and Ragnar bring the giant shipwrights back to build a new one, or that ship has already been built and we've already seen it. I'm talking about Enel's Ark Maxim, a character who, let's be honest, has been linked to Elbaf quite a lot lately. The parallels between IMU and Enel are undeniable. Both see themselves as literal gods, and the protagonist is their natural enemy. Rava against electricity, God against the devil. Even IMU's aesthetic in Elbaf is a callback to Skypia. Just look at those pants and that ring-like structure on their back. They even made the same entrance, effortlessly taking out some straw hats, including Zoro and Sanji. Oda is clearly doing this on purpose, and that's why it makes sense for both of them to have a flying ship associated with Uranus. Think about it. The Ark Maxim flies using Enel's electricity. IMU's weapon currently uses the Mother Flame. But in the past, the original Uranus was likely powered by the electrical energy of the Nidhogg. Now, here's the thing. The Ark Maxim was built by Gunfall's men, but it was done under Enel's strict orders. This means Enel had to get the blueprints for a flying ship from somewhere. It's only logical to assume those plans weren't in Skypia, but in Birka, Enel's homeland. Birka was an island that Enel himself destroyed, and that's likely where he stole the blueprints for Uranus. Now you might be wondering, what does Birka have to do with Uranus? Why would Birka protect the blueprints for a weapon located in Elbaf, just like Water 7 protected the plans for a weapon in Wano? Was there actually a connection between Birka and Elbaf? The answer is yes, and this is going to blow your mind. We know there are different ways to reach the Sky Island, like the High West. It's highly likely that the celestial world at the top of the Adam Tree is one of those routes. Since it's so tall, it probably reaches the same level as the White Sea. In other words, Elbaf is directly connected to the sky, and they likely had a massive trading relationship with Birka. How do we know? Just look at the name. In the real world, Birka was one of the most famous Viking cities in history. It was an enormous trading hub in Sweden that handled goods from all over Scandinavia and Europe. Is it really a coincidence that Oda named Enel's home island Birka just like the Viking city? This has to be a hint. It suggests that Birka was a city with deep ties to the Vikings of the One Piece world, the giants of Elbaf. This explains why Birka was tasked with protecting those blueprints, until they eventually fell into Enel's hands. One thing is for sure, Enel is coming back. If he doesn't appear in Elbaf, he'll be there for the final war, and he'll be fighting alongside Luffy because he represents the forgotten legacy of the moon. When the people of the moon left because their world was dying, they promised their automata they would come back for them. Enel is the key to that ancient pact. He will return to the blue planet with his army on the Ark Maxim, finally giving us a flying ship that can stand up to the original Uranus. This ties perfectly into the mythological parallels Oda loves. The final war, as shown in the Elbaf murals, is the third destruction of the world. It's inspired by Ragnarok and the Messianic Age, where the three ancient beasts finally collide. But there's one tradition that follows every end-of-day scenario in mythology, the Great Feast. Once the dust settles from the final war, we'll witness the biggest celebration the world has ever known. A banquet so grand it finally turns the entire world into one piece. And that's it for today's theory. By the way, if you're still here, thank you so much for watching until the end. This is actually our very first video here on Miss Zoan. We're so excited to finally bring the Last Zoan theories to the international One Piece community. If you enjoyed diving into this mystery with me, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It means a lot as we grow this new English channel. Also, I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, do you think Enel is really coming back with the Ark Maxim? I'd love to read your thoughts. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.